City Correction Commissioner Louis Molina has one of the toughest jobs in the city. I'm not kidding. Running aging facilities and facing constant criticism from federal officials who now want the jails to be overseen by a federal receiver. So that's my first question. Are we on the brink of seeing a federal judge appoint a receiver to run the jails?
I don't think that we're on the brink of that. I think that we have made significant improvements to stabilize the situation that we inherited on January 1st, 2022. We are about, I think, if that process proceeds forward, and that will be up to the judge in this case to do that, that process will probably take about a year, year and a half, is my understanding based on what I've talked with lawyers about.
A year or year and a half until they appoint a receiver, or until they make a decision about appointing?
Yeah, my understanding, it would take that long to make a decision. It would be sort of like, there'll be a sort of a trial proceeding that would happen to make that determination.
So that would give you even more time to change things at the Department of Corrections?
It would give us more time. I mean, I think we have done a lot over the last 22 months, but we inherited a jail system that was brought to the brink of collapse. So it's going to take more than just 22 months to stabilize that. But I think what we have shown is that we have responded quickly than any receiver has historically ever responded to a situation. So receivers don't really have a record of success in these situations.
But the federal monitor and the judge have been pretty hard on the department. I mean, at one point recently, the judge said that you ordered you not to interfere with the work of the monitor. It's just hard feelings? Is the fact that the monitor is not in New York adding to the problem of not understanding what's going on?
Sure. So one is, we don't interfere in the monitor's work, right?
They said that you were.
That's their viewpoint of it. I disagree. I understand their frustration. I mean, look at it. The federal monitor has been in place since about 2016. And from 2016 to 2021, the place just got worse. Use of force incidents increased despite the incarcerated population going down. The place went from a crisis to a human rights catastrophe on the brink of collapse.
And that was under a former mayor?
That was under the former administration, former department officials.
And during COVID?
And during COVID. So you had a couple of things at play at the time. And we answered the call to that alarm, right? In our first year, we lowered use of force incidences 14%, despite the population going up. And in fiscal year 23, our violence and slashing and stabbings were down over 20%. That didn't happen until fiscal year 2019 was the last time that happened. And we're continuing that this year. Calendar year to date, we have an over 20% decrease in slashings and stabbings.
But yet you still had 9 deaths in custody so far this year. Is that a troubling number, or is it just because you have people who are violent, or people who take their own lives, or people who overdose on drugs? I mean, it's all kinds of things that are going on there.
So I'll say, listen, even 1 death is a troubling number. We get individuals that come into our custody that have significant pre-existing health conditions, both physical health and mental health. We do everything to mitigate against that happening. We have a vulnerable population, but I will say that our city's jail system has the lowest per capita per 1,000 people in custody death rate than against other similarly sized systems. Despite all that, we do everything we can to mitigate against someone either doing self-harm or taking their own life or anything like that.
You know, it's interesting that you bring up the mental health issue, because on my show in previous editions, various city officials have talked about the fact that about half of the population have mental health issues, and have suggested that rather than being in prison, they should be in mental health beds in hospitals. I wonder what your position is on that.
So I'm in agreement with that, right? So you have to remember that in the late 60s and early 70s, we just deinstitutionalized people that were getting mental health services in this country. And they did that because the hospitals were not performing to a level of care that those patients needed. But instead of improving the hospitals, they just closed them down and shut them down. So we have the lowest, I think, in history inpatient bed capacity in this country, 21 to 100,000 residents. If we want to lower those that are just involved because of their mental illness, then we have to increase the bandwidth of our health capacity to be able to do that. And that's where the focus should be when talking about reform.
So are we talking about building special hospitals where you could have sort of like prison-like facilities, so obviously they couldn't get out? Or are we talking about going to existing hospitals and setting up prison wings? How do you envision creating more mental health beds for people who should be incarcerated?
So great question. And you know, you're going to have individuals that commit some level of violent crime that, even though suffering from mental illness, need to be in a more secure jail-like facility. But we have a lot of individuals that are committing nonviolent crime, and that is driven by their mental illness. And we have to have the ability to divert those individuals to a public health strategy. That should not be in a jail environment. That should be in a hospital environment. So we should increase our capacity within our health system for those individuals to be inpatiently treated.
So you're talking about two things, really. Mm-hmm. You're talking about hospitals that can have inpatient mental health treatment rather than somebody going to prison. But you're also talking about having prison hospitals in a sense, because people who commit violent crimes while they have mental illness shouldn't be allowed to just walk out the door.
Absolutely. And you're going to have people that commit violent crimes that need to be under some level of sort of mental observation while in a jail setting. And we have the capacity to do that. But 50% of our population has some mental health diagnosis. That's over 3,000 people. 18% have serious mental illness. That's well over 1,000. So we need a public health strategy to solve that, not a criminal justice one.
So it leads me to another question, which is, given the fact that you have people who have mental health issues, are correction officers given special treatment, special education in order to deal with people who have those mental health issues?
Yes, absolutely. So we have all of our officers learn how to manage in vulnerable populations, right? That includes those that are suffering from certain physical disabilities as well as mental health issues. In addition to that, officers that work with our mental observation units, working in partnership with the correctional health services, they also get additional training to deal with that population as well.
So you're also dealing with an old facility.
Yes.
Rikers was built in 1932, which makes it like celebrating its 90-something birthday, 91, whatever. How do you fix a facility? I mean, I read all the reports from the Federal Monitor, and they show pictures of, you know, bad bathrooms and rusted sinks and other things that they complain about. How do you fix a system which is so old and needs a lot of overhaul?
Sure. So Mayor Adams has really authorized a lot of sort of renovation work to be done on the islands. Not every facility was born during that time period in 1932. Some were done significantly later. But in fiscal year 2019, around that time when they decided to close Rikers Island, all that infrastructure upkeep was just abandoned, either significantly underfunded or not funded at all to do. So they let the places wither away. I mean, you can have an old facility, but if you take care of it and upkeep the infrastructure of that facility, then it works fine. We've done a lot to stabilize that too, and we're opening up additional housing units on Rikers Island, which has given us the ability to close the Vernon C. Bain Center, the boat, which is in the Bronx and Hunts Point.
So is it difficult to get money from the capital budget to spend money at Rikers, given the fact that it's supposed to close in 2027?
Well, it's impossible, because the reality is, because legally by local law, Rikers is going to close in August of 2027, it's not eligible for capital funding for infrastructure projects like that, because we wouldn't have the 5-year time frame for amortization.
So how do you fix it?
So we've been using expense dollars to do that, real dollar budget money coming out of the budget in order to do those improvements. Hats off to Tom Foley and the Department of Design and Construction. They've helped us out as well.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.